Top of the morning, fight fans. This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Terence Bud Crawford. Terence Bud Crawford's reaction and his opinion about Jermell Charlo versus Brian Castano last night. This is what Terence Crawford had to say. He said that Jermell Charlo lost, plain and simple. Ooh. Let's look at this fight from last night. A recap. I did the follow-up, the fight study, the breakdown last night. And we knew these type of things were going to happen. Now, the draw, it was what the decision was, okay? It wasn't a win or a lose for either fighter, which was a very good thing because had it been, we'd have been looking at this fight a lot differently, okay? The problem has been, like it has always been, or most of the time, the scorecards, the judges, okay? And Velasquez, back to Velasquez, they had Brian Castano not even in the fight. Not even in the fight. 117, 111, that's like the Levi Martinez scorecard of Lara versus Canelo. You know what I mean? These are these type of fights that make this sport look bad. It made me create and understand that this is the sport that I love, that I hate so much. Okay, because of those type of scorecards, because that type of injustice. Okay, make no mistake about it. A draw would be the best possible outcome for someone like Brian Castano. It could have been. If you were going to do someone wrong, would you rather take his O or would you rather give him another draw, which he's already had? You know what I mean? So it's like the lesser of two evils, okay? But as far as Terence Crawford is right. He just saw a fight. Like a lot of people saw that fight. Jermell Charlo, he had the power. He was the harder puncher. But Castano had technique. He had what you call footwork. And he was able to come in and out, being the smaller, the fighter with the shorter reach. He was still able, with his shorter reach and his footwork, to get in there and inflict pain to Jermell Charlo and buckled him. So it wasn't like this guy was fighting a bigger guy that he couldn't hurt or penetrate. No, he was doing some damage to Jermell Charlo. Jermell Charlo, about the Charlos, they're tough anyway, but at the end of the day, he was giving him a lot of problems round by round. Whenever he would get in position to throw those punches, he would do exactly that. He wouldn't waste any time or any opportunity to do so unless he was hurt. Like the second round or like the 10th round, he was hurt. Other than that, he was giving it his all, okay? And he was making every opportunity count. And that fight last night was a alarming bell that should have went off on Jermell Charlo. And then a lot of people think, well, what would have happened if this would have been Danny Garcia, a little bigger, or Terence Crawford, because of course, Terence Crawford is supposed to go up to fight Jermell Charlo if things don't work his way. Either way, Errol Spence talked about going up too, so that's a totally different story, and they trained together. But it was a tough fight for Jermell Charlo. It was. And I think the best possible outcome for Jermell, though, is a draw. So for Brian Castano, I think he won. I think he won 7 rounds to 5. There were no knockdowns. There were no close calls, okay? This fight went back and forth all night. But most of the time, it was because Castano was pressing the action, okay? He was throwing those shots. He was bringing it to Jermell. Jermell was trying to keep him back at bay, and he had hell doing that, okay? When that right hand landed, he's so accustomed to people fading or being hurt by that right hand. And in times he did that, just like it was shades of like the Tony Harrison 2 fight in there, but it didn't happen like that. He would never put the punches together, and I believe he was afraid of getting tired. Okay, and he didn't want to put too many punches together because he'd wear himself out because he knew he was in there with a firecracker. Brian Castano is a firecracker. That guy will unload on you at any given Sunday. Okay, any given Sunday. So, and he knew that. And he knew, well, hey, this guy already hurt me. This guy's throwing sharp right hands. He was starting to counter over the jab of Jermell Charlo because Jermell Charlo got lazy with it. Okay. And I hope this makes a better fighter out of Jermell and makes him understand that, hey, I can't rely on power alone. But back to Terence Crawford, hey, it was a pragmatic decision. Jermell Charlo should have lost that fight. It shouldn't have been a draw. He should have lost that fight and every other belt that went with it, including the Ring magazine. Counterpunch. So I agree with Terence Crawford, but the best possible outcome for Jermell was a draw. If you notice him in that press conference, I want to talk about that for a minute. Derek James said that, I told him he needed a knockout after the ninth because I heard Steve Fargood's scorecard. You know what I mean? But so he told him, hey, you need a knockout to win. But then again, he knew that Steve Fargood wouldn't on any bullshit either. Okay? So he had no delusions. If he didn't believe Steve Fargood, he wouldn't have told Jermell Charlo that, now would he? He wouldn't have told him that. He'd have just said, keep doing what you're doing. Forget that guy. Don't worry about that guy. I know what you're doing. I see what you're doing. So I think it was a little bit more than that. But I think when he heard that, he was like, you know what? You need that knockout because we don't know where these judges are going to judge. And so that's that. On Jermell, the way Jermell did sound like he was very relieved, honestly. He sounded like he was relieved. He sounded like he was happy about it. Like he said, hey, me and my people could turn up right now. He was saying that because he knew that fight was close. And he knew, he was like, well, I think I won the fight. I think, I should have knocked his ass out, but you didn't. It would be different, again, if he would have knocked him down, if he would have came close to doing that. You buckled a guy a couple times and he survived and he recovered and he came back. That's not a normal Jermell Charlo opponent. That's what makes it special. That's what made last night different. Okay, so with Jermell happy as he was, I read a sign of relief from Jermell Charlo. I really honestly did. And because because normally if you thought that a fight or you thought a scorecard or that was that close or far away and you didn't think it was that close, you'd be upset about it. And I didn't see that. Okay. I couldn't read that about Jermell Charlo. Not at all. I said relief. I sensed oh, damn, he was tough. That's what I sensed about Jermell Charlo. Okay, but back to Terence Crawford. I will counterpunch this. I would now love to see someone like Terence Crawford go up there and fight Jermell Charlo. Of course, we wanted to see Crawford and Errol Spence, but I'm over it because you got other fighters in this world besides two fighters. And if Terence Crawford can beat the stablemate of Errol Spence, because those guys are stablemate, imagine what type of buildup, because then he would have to fight him, just to get his honor back, just to get a strike back. And he knew that fight would be warranted at that point. Derek James would be looking and shaking his head. But anyway, you guys tell me what you think of Terence Crawford's prediction of Jermell Charlo drawing with Brian Castano. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.